Response video to Hythloday's video. Response to my response to his response to my response. Anyway, we're not really making much progress in terms of, I'm certainly not going to concede any of his characterizations of what the asymmetry is and what it represents and what it means and all that stuff. Because, yeah. So anyway, he says the asymmetry is a trivial observation, uninteresting, and he calls that some sort of, that's logical terms or something, or mathematical even terms. But those words do mean something. Uninteresting and trivial, do indicate something, as if there is nothing meaningful in this simple observation. And it is a simple observation that the absence of something in one circumstance can be good or bad, and in another circumstance it won't be the good or bad. Well, anyway, alright, so let's just get to the, to me, you can't get any more meaningful than, let's make analogies, as if you were to find out, that the core of something, the core value of something, like, say it's a kind of surgery, and you found out statistically that it didn't mean anything, it was of no value, it didn't improve results at all. That would be a significant finding, not an insignificant one, and it could be found out in a very simple way. And so I made the analogy of the fact that the asymmetry is basically observed in our contemplation of the universe, or some place like Mars or Venus, and how when we look at these places we might say, ooh, rocky and hostile and not very comfortable and all that stuff, but it doesn't occur to us to say, ooh, there could be, whole civilizations living there, and oh, isn't it horrible that they don't exist, and look at all that fun and good that doesn't exist, and oh, lament, lament. We don't do that. Now, if those plants were covered with little creatures that were squeaking, going ouch, ouch all the time, then there would probably be a whole bunch of people, maybe I'd be one of them, with placards saying we have to do something about the suffering Venetians or something, because we recognize the value of rectifying a harm, and we don't really we don't really acknowledge or recognize any real value to some absence of a good that doesn't necessitate a harm, a good that doesn't replace a harm, a good in and of itself above some sort of state of already not bad. So once something is in the not bad condition, we kind of lose energy for trying to figure out some way to make it better, because by definition not bad is good, essentially. And that's sort of an interestingly, profoundly, that's a big idea, not a little idea. If somebody can make the argument that the entire momentum for the existence of the human species is entirely manifested out of just bigotry or prejudice or preference, just some thought in their head that has no correlation to reality whatsoever, absolutely none, just a percept, because they don't apply the same standards to any other experiment. The only experiment they seem to think is important is the human one, and yet they can make no distinctions between it and any theoretical other experiment. It says something. It says something very meaningful, very profound. So it's one hell of a load of evidence, and so your statement, I say it's trivial, I say it's uninteresting. Well, go ahead and say it, but I don't think you're backing it up with anything. Alright, so then in his second argument he goes on to say some sort of monis ponus bullshit. Well, who cares? I ain't speaking Swahili. And then he goes with the old dodge this ought-if dilemma, which is just something invented by value relativists. There's no... I mean, the very fact that we are actually converting concepts into numerical representations is evidence of the absence of any is-ought problem. Because the is basically got an ought written all over it. And when your math comes out uneven, or you get a negative number, the ought is written in that. So if I gave you efficiency numbers for a car that were minus 4 miles to a gallon, that would be a significant fact. Alright, and it would have ought written all over it. Like, you oughtn't build this car because guess what? Yeah, it's going to go in the opposite direction 4 miles. 4 miles. And it's going to not only eat all your gas, well, it's going to eat all your gas before you even put it in the tank, theoretically, right? Something like that. I mean, the gas is going to go right through and somehow cost you an extra 4%. Well, it doesn't really matter. I won't try to explain how it'd be impossible to have a car of that negative efficiency, but it doesn't really matter. The fact that if the numbers came up that way, they would have ought written all over them. There's no way to avoid the ought. The car is preposterously inefficient. You ought not to buy it. I mean, it's just too obvious. So it's just a pile of crap. Yeah, it really is. Even doing something like this, I mean, you can see the stupidity of it, right? Asymmetry is a... So your ising, and all over that is this attempt to ought it out of recognition as something significant by just using words like trivial and uninteresting, which aren't very, they're rather trivial and uninteresting ways to describe something. Yeah, trivial is a rather trivial word, and uninteresting is incredibly trivial as a way of describing something. So, you know, you could use the word irrelevant, but I think if you used a word like irrelevant, you'd laugh at yourself and say, how could I possibly say it's irrelevant? You know, if the insight provided by this simple mechanism is true, can't be contrived into some other fact, but the fact that it reveals, which is that, yes, the only thing that needs humans to be here are humans. The only thing that's going to need Martians are Martians. The only thing that's going to need Venetians are Venetians, because it's all just bigotry. It has nothing to do with anything logical or rational. It just has to do with people's perceptions of their own aggrandized status and importance, and that's it. No real importance, no real standing, no real accomplishment, just perception. And, you know, you have to account for that. You know, I mean, you either account for the conclusions of this, or you somehow point out how these conclusions are fundamentally inaccurate. And I don't think you could point out how they're fundamentally inaccurate in how they've been contextualized to explain the fact that there's problems with these concepts. Fun is a stupid concept, or pleasure, or the positive experiences, in the sense that they do have to come with this perception of potential harm as being the penalty. I guess I have to get that. Until next time, and such. My probably said enough.